Okay, guys, welcome to another episode of Gloved. Sorry for the break. There's been a few things going on, but all positive, all settled and ready to go. Super excited. I've got one of my first and foremost good friends, nothing to do with football, guy that I get on with off the field, as well as on the field. Guy I've worked with internationally. I've worked with him at club level. I've played in front of him. I've played behind him. But ultimately, great working relationship. And that aside, someone I admire greatly as a goalkeeper, greatly as a person and as a mentality. I'm probably gonna have to say second to none. Gets the best out of everything he's got and really puts it into a good place for the team. So I'm really pleased to welcome Tom Heaton to Gloved. Heaton, welcome.
Cheers, making me a bit emotional there. Thanks, mate. That was very pleasant. Feelings mutual, pal.
Nothing but love, mate. Yeah, thank you for giving us your time. Heath, you've never met Jay, so over the internet, say hello.
No, Tom, great to meet you. Really, obviously, I've seen you over the years, and I've seen you two together. Good to have another Northerner. Do we say Chester? Is it north?
Hey? Chester's up north for me.
Yeah, we live down here, mate. Anything about.
Good. Yeah. So no, really, I've been excited to hear your story. It's not that I read. You read much about what you've been up to. So I'm looking forward to jumping into that.
Thanks, Jay. Obviously good to meet you too. Obviously known Hart and spoke about you a lot and very highly about the work he's done with. So yeah, as I say, it's great to meet you and looking forward to this.
Good.
So Heats, where are we at on the injury, stroke, recovery? Sorry, my bad, Jamie.
Yeah, it's not too far off. I've got to say, it's been bumpy as ever with a sort of long-term injury. You get sort of periods of positive periods, bits that you have to sort of get through a little way. So. Yeah, we're moving in the right direction. I'm back out on the grass, getting closer to training with the team. I've had a couple of little bumps in the road with it that we've had to get through, but starting to see a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel, and it's nice to be getting close to pulling that shirt back on.
Buzzing. Irony, eh? Turf Moor.
I know, you can't. Just incredible, isn't it? Absolutely incredible. It's if I wasn't crying myself to sleep after it, I'd be laughing. It was unbelievable, really.
So
just on that, I mean, Pete, I was thinking, God, what, you've gone back there and how was that for you? I mean, what were you like before going back? What was the mentality before going back? Because it couldn't have been that long after you'd left.
No, it was New Year's Day. So I'd been at Villa for about 6 months, about half a season. I think it was the 20th Premier League game. We'd played them earlier in the season at Villa Park, which, because that was so soon after I'd left, I think it was 2-3 games into the season. Certainly wasn't long. So that was a strange feeling. Stood on the opposite side of the tunnel. Barnsley and Westy had told all the lads not even to say one word to me and not look at me, which was typical for them to. As well as trying to ring me during the night, during the week to try and affect me sleep, which is about par for the course for those two characters. So, if I'm honest, earlier in the season at Villa Park, that felt a little stranger than going back to Turf Moor. I was excited for it. I was looking forward to it. I had a fantastic 6 years there. I was thoroughly enjoying playing for Villa, new club, fresh challenge, loving every minute of it. So yeah, I was excited, to be honest. I was really looking forward to the day and enjoyed the 70 odd minutes that I got through, to be fair.
Right.
Yeah, I think obviously a lot of people, obviously how you left and stuff like that, they won't. And Burnley being the club that it is, kind of, you're either at Burnley or you're not. There's not a great deal of focus outside of it. But I think it was a really nice thing to have you back there. The fans there are really loyal. They're really respectful of what their players do for the team. And you've been on an incredible journey. You, the manager, you players like Vokesy, who's not there anymore, but the guys who've really been there, Ashley Barnes. So I think it was nice for you to go back and for them to show their appreciation as a club And correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm presuming you got nothing but, you know, good wishes and people hoping, wishing the best for you and thanking you for what you did, which is not normal. And that's why I want to like put a light on Burnley for that, because, you know, people say they kind of crashed the Premier League party, but they are really proper club, and who really respect their players and appreciate what's been given back to them by the players.
Totally agree, and you're absolutely spot on. I think the relationship with the football club and the fans and everyone involved, for me, 6 years there, 4 years, and the success we had over that period, you know, never forget it. You know, that I don't think that will ever go away, and that was a big part of the reason why I was so excited to go back, and the warmth of reception I got walking onto the pitch, and also getting carried off it on the stretcher. You know, one of my biggest moments in football was getting back in the team for that 28th of December when unfortunately you came out the team and I went back into it, just based on the reception that I got walking out that tunnel that day. You know, it was a moving moment for me. I wasn't expecting it, if I'm honest, to that level, but just at that moment, for me, it was an incredible moment in my career that I'll never forget. And I think you're right. I think that sort of understanding of the connection that the fans and the players have at Burnley Football Club. You know, it's such a town team where it's based around the area. I have such a connection with the football club. I think you can feel that, and I think you're exactly right in what you say.
I agree. I got the same feeling for you, and you know, whatever my 2 years were at Burnley, or whatever, like I see it for what it is. I went there to play, and we'll talk about the dynamic of myself and you and what went on. But you know, I've literally got no hard feelings towards the club, how it went, and I even still felt appreciated by the club for trying to do what I was involved in. So, yeah, very good club, and a fully deserved reception. So let's go way back. Let's go way back, Heats.
Yeah.
Because the way I was looking at you, you were almost the golden boy of our England generation from 16 up.
Yeah, probably fairish, I think.
True.
Yeah.
It's absolute truth,
You
mate.
were the same age.
We're not.
I'm a touch older, yeah. There's not a lot in it. Yeah, there's not a lot in it.
I thought I'd let you get that one in. Yeah, get that in early.
Yeah, you're supposed to be on my side. Yeah, golden. I can see where you're going with it. I think would be fair. Yeah.
So first involved. So when did you go to United? Tell me about your first move to the big boys.
I moved. I went on trial at 11 years old, Littleton Road in Salford. Did a trial in a kit that was too big for me with the under-16 goalkeepers. They're all far bigger than me. I remember.
And how did this trial come about? Sorry.
I was playing for Chester Town team against Tameside, a Tameside team. Yeah, we got beat 1-0. If I remember on the day. I was 10, 11 years old. Played relatively well, if I'm honest, flinging myself about in the goal. Terrible pitch, terrible day, but managed to keep the ball out of the net a few times relatively well. A guy came up to, it was actually our school teacher who was taking the town team, said he was from United, interested in me. Heard nothing for 6 weeks, and I think it was the last training session of the season, actually, the 11th season. Got asked to go down and have a go, and thankfully I did that one session, that one trial. They looked at me and thought I was, thought I had enough about me to give me a shot, give me a 1 year, I think, contract, 1 or 2 year contract on sort of schoolboy forms. So I signed that day, ready for the new season.
And are you a goalkeeper? Growing up, you were a goalkeeper no matter what, because a lot of us goalkeepers were just failed strikers. Are you fully? Because even from a young age, like I'm going to get into your focus, but was your focus as a goalkeeper? Do you know what I mean? From day one.
To be fair, up to that point, I think I was mixed. You know, I was playing for Wrexham School of Excellence as a central midfielder and a goalkeeper. I was doing both training. I actually asked Paul McGuinness at the time, who was, a big part of the setup there, if I could have a trial as an outfielder, which was just a blanket no. So at that point, it was a bit of a turning point for me. 11 years old, I still like playing outfield. I still played outfield for school, but really at that point, my football began to be, turned into purely a goalkeeper, really. You know, I still like playing outfield now. You know, I'm not going to lie. I enjoy being a bit of a target man up top. But it probably was at that point nailed on that it was going to be serious goalkeeper, and that was that.
Right. And had you always had aspirations as that 10-year-old and 11-year-old to be, that's where I want to be? Because that's
Yes.
quite early. That's quite
It is.
early in the career to be at the club.
Yeah, it is. I agree. I think from my memory, which usually lets me down my memory, but I think from an earlier age, actually, I was desperate to be a professional footballer. You know, I was playing for the local, the primary school team, captain of the primary school team, the Cub Scout team, the local Sunday League team, the town team, Wrexham School of Excellence, just as many teams as I could, because I absolutely loved it. And there was a desperation from me to become a professional footballer. There's a memory of mine that, you know, with the boys in the village, you know, a small sort of village on the outskirts of Chester. And I remember sort of playing with the older boys and being, you know, not too bad at football, sort of fitting in quite well with them. And, you know, one of them said to me one day, you know, you play now, but once you get to high school and that, you know, there's other interests, you sort of fall out of love with football. I remember going to bed with a pure fear that I might not like football as much as I did now. And it's funny, it's never left me that. Honestly, I went to bed with a fear that I was not going to have the same intensity that I had even from that 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 age, really.
Right. Did you get that from dad or from the family, or from who were you looking up to then?
Dad, probably a little bit of both, if I'm honest. Mum and dad were both PE teachers by trade. Mum did it for 30, 35 years.
Right.
Dad did it for 20, 25 years, and then went into a parcel company and did sort of recruitment and psychometric testing, which was helpful later on as I sort of was going up throughout my career. Dad was a decent footballer, semi-pro, I think he played. Within Albion, and he was a good rock climber. He got to top 50 in squash in the country, I think. He plays off 69 and plays off 4 handicap golf. So, you know, he's pretty focused himself, I think. Would be fair to say.
Big Dave Heaton is a huge part of Tom Heaton, without the obvious reasons. But
yeah,
you come as a pair, don't you? You trust, you confide, you speak. You've got a great relationship from what I can see. And
I mean, we were close, you know. Sorry, go on, Jack.
No. What I was going to say, and I was going to say at the beginning, Tom, was that the reason why I'm so interested in your story is because most would look at the obvious and say, like Joe's just said, you know, you were a golden boy, and you know, and you've had this career that's very different from, let's say, Joe's or the next player, where they say, you know, the obvious is very talented, that's his trajectory. I wouldn't say yours was the obvious, although Joe said you were the golden boy, so there was a trajectory from you. But I think what most people listening and watching will, what I want them to get is, it's the non-obvious things that contribute to where you are today. And so when you talk about dad, mum, and you talk about dad being focused, and, you know, the things that you've learned from that, those are the non-obvious. And then you get a Tom Heaton who's got the qualities and characteristics that he's got, which we will get into. But that's the bit that intrigues me, is that there's some bloody stuff that nobody knows about, that, you know, unless you are in your inner circle, you wouldn't know what was in Tom Heaton's head and how he's got to the point he's at.
Yeah, very, very fair. I think, you know, my sister's probably part of that, my mum, but probably, I said, my dad, he and I were very close, you know, travelling from Chester 4 or 5 times a week at 11 onwards. You know, even just the travelling time, you know, you're looking at an hour and 20 minutes there, hour and 20 minutes back, the conversations we were having pre-training, after training. And just as soon as he was able to get into me 4 or 5 times a week in that time, I remember he, because of, you know, work commitments, working for the parcel company, he'd be getting a driver to come to the house, a parcel driver, pick me up in a van. I didn't know who it was. I'd get in the van. He'd drive me to one of the depots where my dad would have to meet me and then take me on. Just purely because of the commitments of time and what have you. And I remember, you know, the parcel driver arrived. I wasn't ready. I hadn't got my stuff ready. I hadn't got my kit on. I've been watching TV after school. I'll never forget the fact that he said he's never going to take me again unless all my kit, and I was on the ball with everything that's going on, with the effort he's putting in, the sacrifice he's putting in. And it just brought me into line in terms of attitude, standing, professionalism from a very early age. So yeah, it probably goes back to that far back, really, that relationship we have now. I still speak to him every day on the way into training and on the way out of training, every day without fail, almost like a sort of a marker, an anchor to get ready for the day, and then a shutting the door on the day, good, bad, indifferent, you know, what's gone off, and it literally shuts it down and then gives me a thought process to go forward. It's just become second nature.
So what was your commitments as a 11-year-old to Manchester United, not living in Manchester? Where was your head at with that? Because I kind of had the Shrewsbury, like the small version of it, but still a club at 11 wanted me to go and train 2-3 times a week at the weekend, and not all these kind of things. And I was at 11 years old. I was like, no way, like that's just not me. That's just what it just wasn't me as a kid. And like I've said before, like the only way I was going to get out of that, like I told my dad, and you know, I've got a good relationship with my old man as well. And he said, listen, son, you got to do whatever you got to do, but if you're going to make that decision, you've got to go and tell the coach, which was like, oh shit. So went and did that, but I needed time away. At 11, were you ready? Were you ready to really throw down it? Like, it must have been, it's huge news. Like, Manchester United want you, you're wearing a Man United tracksuit. They're the greatest team in the world. Like, you were ready for all that at 11.
Yeah, I think I was. I've got to say, I think I was. I never had any issues with the sacrifice of, you know, kids' parties or, you know, doing other things after school, which a normal childhood might take you. You know, I distinctly remember that the first day I signed when after that trial, and I'd signed on the dotted line, and we came home, and obviously delighted, family was delighted, and I remember him sitting me down in front of all the family, my sister, my mum, and saying, it's just a brilliant opportunity. That's it. It's nothing more. It's nothing less. Want to give it everything we've got. You've got to give it everything you've got, because you don't want to look back and go, I wish I'd done a little bit more. And that's probably resonated throughout my career. Again, it sounds a little bit cliche, but it really has, if I'm honest. I've tried to do everything I possibly can, just because I try to see everything as an opportunity.
Yeah. Well, unreal to have that at an early age. Like, probably had the mick, like you've had the mick taken at you in a fun way, in a non-fun way. No, I'm not like that. But like, to have that is huge, and is the reason why you've done what you've done in your career. Even when, you know, I joked about Golden Boy, but like, nothing's been given to you, absolutely nothing. And if anything, a lot's been taken away from you. You know, the middle period of your career that we'll talk about, when you were, you know, on playing in goal for an 11 in Marbella 11 against whoever it was, Bristol City, I think you said.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
but still, because of what the foundations that were laid, I'd imagine you still managed to have a focus. So that's something that I really want to get into. But growing up through, we'll skip through. So you're coming into the under-16s. You're part of England.
Yeah.
You don't, even at that age, did you just see it as another stepping stone, like as another step? Obviously, with Dave, your old man.
Who's around at the time? Who's in that under 16s group? You, Joe, and then who else?
I'm nowhere near. I'm coming in with some blonde highlights at about 18, 19.
Okay, right.
So, yeah. Goalkeeper wise, David Martin.
The one at West Ham now?
Yeah, West Ham, David Martin. Yeah, he was my age.
What about in the United team? What about in the United squads? Who were you in and around?
Luke Steele was signed when I became a first year, signed full time. They signed him for £1 million from Peterborough.
Wow.
Yeah, which was a year older than me. He played in the Youth Cup year that they ended up winning as well. I sat on the bench for all of it. tough. It was tough when, as a 15-year-old, I played in the under-17s. I was thrust into it through a couple of injuries, and to be brutally honest, played pretty well. Playing 2 years up at that age, I'd gone and played for England under 16s, and been the number one really at under 16s, and through into under 17s, played in the European Championships, and then it just felt like they'd gone and signed someone. I was like, And it hurt me a little bit, if I'm honest. Emotionally at the time, I was, asking questions. At that time, my support system probably didn't have any experience. To talk about my dad and family at that time, didn't have any experience of, you get sucked into someone's get brought in front of you and you go, I'm better than him. You get too sort of linear in terms of your thinking. But I had a good coach at the time, Richard Hart, who basically threw down a challenge like any coach would. It's got nothing to do with you. The club have brought him in. It's irrelevant, and he was right. He was right. It was a good lesson for me. It was I changed my focus to being less concerned about the club deciding on that, almost blocking my path through as it can be viewed, and just creating my own path through and making sure I'm getting better every day and improving. So when and if the opportunity came, I was ready. And yeah, that was probably my biggest, my first marker of a challenge really that needed a little bit of resilience, I think.
The interesting one about that is that you've had that experience early and recognized it as a key. It's like a significant event for you. Very often, Tom, I get senior players, young players, so I'm glad you've brought it up. I get them worrying about who's coming in. And you've said, well, that was my first challenge, and somebody's mentored you and said, and you've then took it on you and said, I've got to take care of me. Now, we're going to skip a few years because you two, we might as well get into it because it's on that topic. Yeah. I'm interested in Joe's come in.
Oh, yeah. Where am I coming in?
Fast forward to...
We're fast forwarding because you've...
To Burnley or to England?
Well, we could go both. Yeah. But let's do the Burnley one first because I think that's the one that's evident. You're at Burnley and Joe comes in.
No, hold on. Let's set the scene first. Heats is club captain at Burnley, and you've had a pretty bad shoulder injury in the previous season. Yeah. Ruling you out from, I don't know, a couple of games into the season?
Fourth game in.
Right, so fourth game in the season. He's his club captain, probably won Player of the Year or whatever the year before. Well established. They've got big Nick Pope, kind of an unheard of sign by the club, comes in to replace Heats, which is a huge loss for Burnley in the Premier League. Huge loss. Could end up be the difference between them getting relegated. Popey's come in, done very well. Surprised a lot of people then. Obviously, it doesn't surprise us now because we know his qualities. But so Popey's come in, had a really strong season. It's pretty much taken you till the end of the season to get right. And then, so then a little bit of cracks in how you felt. I want you to get into how you're feeling at the end of the season because, you've got a good relationship with the manager, but good relationship with the club. But you're fit, you're ready. There's how many games left when you're ready?
7.
Pretty expectant to just walk back in, right?
Fair. Yeah.
Don't.
Yeah.
How are you taking that? Because we'll go back to the ups and downs, but you are on nothing but an up at the moment. You peak. You're England. You've got games under your belt for England. You're well established in the squad. You're well established at Burnley. You've got an injury like everyone gets. You expect to walk back into the team with a manager that you work with closely, a goalkeeper coach that you work with closely, a goalie that you work with closely, and you're not included. A man who sees things as they are and outside noise doesn't really affect where you're at. I can see it in your face, like you really live in it. It's not easy.
Right. Yeah, no, it's not.
Because this is important, Jay. This is really important before I even get in the door.
No, and
I think Yeah, he's right. He's absolutely bang on. I think the summer before, so the 4 games in, the summer before, I think it was the summer of 2017, I just started my first game for England away in France. So a big moment, you know. I think
I remember
for me it was, I was, you know, I was on the back of getting Player of the Year in the Premier League before. I was looking forward to sort of kicking on again. Really, that was how I was viewing it. You know, 4 games in, nasty injury, stops you in your tracks. You know, it was a bad injury. It was a fracture, a dislocation, and quite heavy nerve damage. So, yeah, it was obviously less than ideal. And at the end of that season, I think it was going into 2018, there was obviously the World Cup. So that was dangling there as well. So it wasn't just the fact that, you know, when I was back fit, my own personal expectation was to go back in the team and play. That's what I believed I should have been doing. It was my expectation. Whether that's right or wrong, you know, I've not got a balanced head on it. I'm only looking from my point of view. Popey had come in and been absolutely brilliant. You know, he and I have a fantastic relationship as well, and he'd been brilliant. But I can only talk from my own personal view. I thought I was going to go back into the team.
You felt like you had enough in the bank, right? You had enough in the bank.
Probably, that's probably fair. And even if it was just the last couple of games of the season, that was my expectation. That was my belief. That was my expectation. You know, the manager saw it differently, and I can see that. You know, I think now with the emotion sort of calmed down, totally understand why he didn't put me back in. It probably didn't warrant me going back in as I look at it a bit calmer now. But at the time, that was where I was at. That was my belief. That was my expectation. And I fought it, really, if I'm honest. I fought it. I fought it every day. I wasn't happy with it. Wasn't comfortable with it. I was knocking on his door.
How did you deal with that?
Who were you taking that out on?
Me and the manager had a couple of heated conversations, you know, but we've always had and always still have a fantastic relationship. And I think the sign of a good relationship is when you can have those strong conversations. You know, at the end of the day, he was the one making the decisions, so I suppose he was the one where I was taking my gripe to. And yeah, it was irritating me inside. I was desperate to get to the World Cup, desperate to be part of a World Cup with an exciting England team, and without playing any games, it just wasn't going to happen. You know, it was just how it was. So it felt like I was being reined in and stopped in my tracks when I felt fit. I felt at it. I think on reflection, as I look back, even though I was classed as fit 7 games to go, was I working at maximum capacity? No. And the one thing that Sean Dyche always has been very good at is cutting all the emotion out of it and just seeing what's right there in front of him, the facts that he's seen with his eyes, and then making a decision based upon it, which is exactly what you want from a manager. But obviously for me, it was difficult to see that. So that was chewing me up a little bit, and left me a little bit uncertain about which way we were going to go going forward, if I'm honest. Which brings us to the summer that we're talking about, I suppose.
Yeah, so set that up. Myself personally, I'm way off it, like literally floating around aimlessly. I think 2 years left on my deal at City. Refusing to go out on loan, you know, because it just wasn't doing it. It wasn't doing good for anyone. And yeah, I was a bit lost. I was looking for a permanent deal, or I was in a place where I was like, you know what, unless it's right for me, I'm not moving. I'll sit and I'll do whatever needs to be done at the club. It's whatever. It's football. It's business. I've been stung. Anyway, it's not about me. So Popey is starting. You and Popey have started the pre-season. What got fed back to me was I don't know, you had a little problem with your calf, whether that's true or not, but like this is I'm going to give the information from my side.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Yeah.
So then Burnley, so then Popey, I think you've got a Europa League qualifier, so it's 1 week into pre-season or 2 weeks into pre-season. Ironically, pretty similar injury to yourself. Shoulders buggered.
Yeah.
Which, you know, I just presume outside of, I'm not looking at Burnley for any other reason other than like my pal plays for them. So all right. So any indecision that was going to be there, well, it's not there anymore. Heats plays. Then I get the call. You know, Heats isn't. I don't know if Heats is right, but there might be an opportunity to come play for Burnley. So, well, yeah. why not? You know, I'd love to do that. It's local. It's a project that potentially in Europe, established club. Obviously, hear nothing but good things about the hard work and the ethic, which is how I see myself as a player and as a person. Then it started getting a bit more real, and obviously got to the point of I've obviously got a relationship with you, so I've got to front it up and give you a call. But I wanted you to tell me what's going on from your side. That's only what I saw and all I could give you. What's going on with you at this point?
Pope has obviously done his came into pre-season thinking fresh season. I managed to get to that point despite being irritated. I think irritated is the wrong word. Despite being frustrated, I think is probably the right word at the back end of the season before. Yeah. Came into pre-season with a fresh slate. Obviously, Pope had done well. But I was ready to go. You know, I'd missed a lot of football the previous season. I was ready to sort of hit the ground running. I had a good off season where I'd put a fair bit of work in, arguably too much because Pope did his shoulder, and then lo and behold, I have a little small calf strain. I was, you know, a 7 to 10 dayer, and that's the point I think where I think the opportunity to get you came up from memory from the club, and they took it. The first I knew in any official capacity was the phone call you made to me. I still remember where I was standing when I took it, and I'll never forget that, Hart. I mean that it was a massive moment, that, because wasn't an easy phone call to make. No way it was. I know it wasn't coming from your point of view. I also, you know, I understood the position you were in, the opportunity that arose, and you were right to take it. And you know, I knew that meant it was going to be a challenge for me in terms of the situation I'd had the previous season, the situation I was in. You know, it was a small injury, but obviously on the back of a longer one, it's probably put a little doubt in their mind anyway.
I think that definitely. I think that's, now I look at it now, that was the reason.
But that phone call, to be brutally honest, was a mark of you as a person, you as a man, and as a friend. And I'll never forget it, because it sort of always makes me think, if there's something that needs to be dealt with head on, it's got to be dealt with, difficult or not. You can't put your head in the sand. The best thing you can do is get out in front of it, deal with it, speak to people, be honest. I mean, if it's not easy, because it meant the world to me, that phone call, honestly, it did. And it just, you know, it's just how it was, and it was good. It was really good. So that was when I knew you were coming on the back of that phone call, and I knew it was going to be a bit of a roller coaster season, to be fair. So you know, we've always said, you know, we'd support each other, and we said it. I remember we said it on the phone call. Whoever plays, you play, I play, we'd back each other 100%, and just take the challenge to each other and try and get the best out of each other. And in fairness, I think that's what we did.
I think
no, definitely. Just saying, like, I spoke to Jay about it, I spoke to Kim about it, and I just didn't feel comfortable talking about, you know, your name was obviously mentioned a lot in what was going on. I just really didn't feel comfortable in doing it until I'd spoken to you, because, you know, with the greatest respect, I was going to do it. It was going to happen, but there's no way I couldn't just turn up and be like, "Oh, hi, pal." Like, I need to know where you're at. I need the facts. And I needed you to know that, like, I genuinely meant that we were working together in a team, and whatever happened. It was not between me and you. It was between the management of a football club. And I don't mean that as in I'm throwing Sean Dyche, you know, you deal with it. I'm just saying that's how I work, and that's how you work. And clear, get it on the table, bosh. We can carry on being having the same relationship we've got. Absolutely loved working you when we played with England anyway, so I look forward to that anyway. Bring the best out of each other, whatever was going to be the outcome of that. So maybe mentally, it was probably worse that it was me, but at the same time, it was better that it was me, because if they were going to bring someone in, at least it was someone, you know, you could be real with. And obviously, I had to stay true to my word. 18 games in, 19 games, whatever it was, go over, and I'm right there having your back, just as you treated me. But mentally difficult for you that time. I remember having to speak to you. You know, we sat together, we spoke. Calmness. Often I tried to just give you calmness, because you were like a bull. You know, you were charged. You needed to play, and I'm exactly the same guy. Like, you needed to play. You needed to get out. You're in a situation at the club. mad couple of months for you. So talk me through that mentally.
Yeah, it was strange. Just a couple of little bits to add in there. I think you came in and played Istanbul. Someone or other did, didn't
Gail Clichy's team. It was
that's
Istanbul.
right. Yeah. And I was actually back fit for that game, but there was an issue with registration for the Europa. I can't remember what it was. That, you know, I wasn't too comfortable with how that went down. You know, almost like I can't remember the exact details. As I say, like a misregistration, or there was too many players registered. They weren't sure I was going to be fit in time. So you ended up playing. I think you kept the clean sheet, didn't you, on the Thursday night away in Turkey?
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
And I'll be honest, I came in on the Friday, or I think it was the Saturday, because I think we played Southampton on Sunday. I was expecting to play. You know, I remember on that Friday, and you sort of get a smell of it, don't you, when you start training? I'm sort of singing on the way into the training ground in the car, thinking, you know, you've come in. But if I'm honest, I thought I was going to play. It was a tough Friday, that Derby or Friday. It was a tough afternoon. I think I might have gone straight into the manager's office actually on that Friday.
You did, mate. We like looked at each other, and I went. You were like, yeah.
So, you know, I went straight in.
Did you send him in, Joe?
No, I didn't. I think it was one of them. We obviously had to both nod at each other and accept that whoever was playing, we were going to nod at. The other one was going to nod at the other one, and the other one was going to go and do what he needed to do.
So I went in there, and you know, the usual sort of player not playing to a manager. You know, you vent your frustrations, and the manager, you know, picks the team at the end of the day. So it was a tough one. You know, I remember Billy Mercer, who obviously worked very closely with, came to my room on that night. We were away in Southampton. I think we flew down. You know, we cleared the air. You know, that was all part of it, and that was it. You know, Joe had the shirt, and that can be the frustration sometimes playing in goal. You know, once you've got the shirt, you're in until something goes wrong, whether injury, suspension, a little bit of poor run of form. Was tough for me. You know, it was tough because it was out of my hands. You know, I think one of the big things that's been very prevalent in my career is control. You know, I like having control, whether that's control of what I'm doing or getting better at something. But sat behind Harty, you know, it was out of my control. What are you thinking? As you said, it was.
You're on the bench. Yeah. What?
Yeah.
Because honestly, Tom, I know there's a bunch of young goalkeepers. There's a bunch of goalkeepers in the Championship, in League One, who are listening to this, and it's how do I behave, act when I'm on the bench and I'm playing behind somebody, and not just somebody. You've got this guy in front of you, knowing that, you know, the interesting thing about Burnley, you had 3 top keepers there.
Yeah.
I don't think there's many. Maybe Fraser had at Southampton, but I don't think, you know, with him and McCarthy and whoever, but not the quality of Hart, Pope and Heaton. Tell me how many Premiership clubs have had those 3, as in that quality of English goalkeepers in one.
Yeah, very few.
Very few. So what are you're on the bench. What can somebody learn, being brutally honest, and stop saying I'll be honest, because we're always honest, all right? So
yeah.
What can somebody learn from you're on the bench watching Joe Hart? And it's not even a question of I'm behind and I'm learning. It's I'm supposed to be between the posts. What are you thinking? What are you on the bench thinking?
Yeah, it's difficult. It's probably a tale of two parts, really. I think the initial human part, it took me a little bit of time to deal with. You know, it was that anger, you know, that sort of negative emotion, the anger, the frustration. You know, at the same time, always having the, I mean, you'll probably know better than me because you will have seen it with a bit more clarity, Joe. But always being there and supporting and not trying to be any detrimental effect on you whatsoever. You know, despite dealing with the issues that I was having, I was still right behind what you were doing. That's how I felt, and I hope I never came across with a, you know, that affected you in any way, shape, or form with that. I was certainly actively trying not to do that. However, I was struggling a little bit at first. I think it took me, you know, 6 weeks to square off my mindset again about, right, what do I want? Well, I want to play. So because it's out of my control, because I'm behind someone with the quality that Joe's got, on a time scale, I wasn't willing to wait. So you start looking at the possibility of moving. The first opportunity of that would have been January for me. So once I'd used that time to let all that out, box it up, reinstate what I was driving towards, which was playing. Right, what are you going to do? How are you going to do it? You know, it's going to be looking at every aspect. So when that opportunity arose again, I was going to be better than I was before. That was my driver in the end. So that's where I started doing a little bit more in the time that I got when I wasn't playing. We all know, well, certainly I think that you're able to push the boundaries more in training and get more out of yourself when you're not playing. Even though I was on the bench, you can push it a little bit more for me. Certainly with my mindset, the fact that, you know, when I'm playing week in, week out, you know, I'm very, very protective of mental and physically on that game. When I start, I want to be 100%. Don't want to be 95. You know, so I'm very delicate at what I do 2 days before, 2 days after, which leaves you with 2 days in the middle of the week, really, to put some work in. Whereas if you're not playing, really, you're probably looking at 4 or 5 days. So I started to build up a catalogue of different things where I was going to be better for the next time the opportunity arose for me. That mentality changed after I'd let a bit of calmness come in from the initial irritation. I keep saying irritation, it's not irritation. The initial negativity.
Yeah, well, from working with you, you did do that, and have been looking like I will be in a similar sort of position coming up soon. And I agree. I'm not going to have the irritation or negativity at the moment, but I'm certainly going to have the feeling of wanting more out of maybe the role that I'm going to start off with. And even last year, you know, and even when you were playing, I see it. You have to have those feelings, though, Heach. You have to have those feelings, and I stand by those feelings of anger, irritation, of thinking, the fuck am I not playing? Like, I stand by that feeling because that makes me feel alive. Like, that makes me feel like I'm in this game. That makes me want to fight. And I strongly believe that's why you've got, you know, a fantastic move to Aston Villa, for where a club's invested a lot in a club that's, you know, their policy is not to spend anyone over the age of 24 like any club is. And they've spent 8-9 million on you, 33, you know, big shoulder injury, blah, because of how you were and how you were ready to step in. And all those feelings, I think, are key. Like, we're trying to send messages to because we want to talk about real life stuff that people are doing and what they overcome, and to try and suppress the feeling of anger or frustration. I think you can't. You need to feel that, especially in something that you're involved in, you're passionately invested in. But then to have the control and to use it in the right direction, like Heat's in every morning doing left and right foot volleys, having, you know, doing things that a 14-year-old would do, and like having the mick taken out of him in the Burnley dressing room, but didn't care, didn't bat an eyelid. Focus on, I'm not playing for Burnley. I'll be ready if Burnley need me, but if Burnley really don't need me, someone else is going to get me. And when that moment comes, I'm going to be ready. And like, that is what we're trying to get across, Jay, to have that mentality, because you don't need to be hurt to have a great mentality. You can't just have a great mentality because you've been hurt or you need to prove someone wrong. Like, this all started when you were 11 years old. Like, there couldn't be any more glaringly obvious as we speak.
Yeah, I'd forgotten about that, actually, Harty. I forgot about the 20 minutes in the gym in the morning before training. That was
Why are you not doing it anymore?
Not currently, mate. ACL. I was doing it.
No, you know what I mean.
Villa. No, I was doing it at Villa. Yeah. Yeah, I agree about the drive. I think and you've said it's about reframing it, channeling it into something that you can use rather than it cutting you up and being taking you to a negative place. I think once you've got control of it, and it is control, you can use that for that. And it all comes from that drive, that desire of what you actually want. You know, I think what you want to achieve, what you want to do, that determination to get there, for me, they all come from the same place. Sometimes they come out in different ways, but it's about then, you know, using your tools to try and channel it where you need it to go. You know, for me, one of the things that I'd highlighted is better on my left foot. You know, I wanted to be able to passes out with my left foot rather than just a clearance. So yeah, it was 20 minutes before trainer, take me moulds into the indoor. I'd be with the under 18s. You know, the under 18s are doing volleys and passes and that, and you know, there's me. Well, I'd been 32 at the time, 32, 33, in amongst them with a ball against the wall, literally practicing different scenarios at the game. Yeah, did I get a bit of grief? Yeah, but I absolutely loved it. You know, it was about me better for when you know, that opportunity arose again.
It's exciting. I get excited just listening to what you're talking about there. Getting better and saying, you know, I'll be better when the opportunity arises, you're able to step into that. I think, you know, what Joe's saying about the irritation and the anger. Yeah, that's humanness. And I think a lot of the time people try and suppress the anger, or they hold on to the irritation as opposed to have ways to be able to deal with it. So anger is an appropriate emotion. It just depends on how you actually deal with it. But would you say that situation of Joe coming in, having Pope there as well, ultimately what was the lesson for you in that period? What was the lesson for you? There's a life lesson in there somewhere.
The career lesson, I think, I'll have to go a bit deeper for the life lesson. I haven't got there yet, but I think the career lesson for me was probably strongest challenge they've had of not focusing on what's directly in front of you and being very, very intrinsic in my thinking of my situation, what I can affect. You know, I'm not, even though Joe was playing in front of me at that in time. For me, the competition isn't really with Joe. You know, if I was good enough, there wouldn't be decision. You know, so there's I still thought I should be playing, but at the end of the day, I always sort of see it as a competition with myself to go, right, well, let's go to the next level. He might have got it wrong this time, but I'll push it to the next boundary so he can't get it wrong next time with the decision. And it sounds like, you know, it sounds a little bit sort of too good to be true, but that literally is my thinking. You know, I don't really look at people around me as
competition.
Not irrelevant. Irrelevant in terms of my career, yeah. Irrelevant in terms of what I'm doing, yeah.
Yeah, and some of that's exactly what, because you don't control the decision, and the sooner players and people understand that decision has nothing to do with your ability, because in some cases it can just be tactical. In some cases it's when you get the hand on the shoulder and you say, I think you should find a new club. What has that got to do with what? You're not in control of that. You saying, because I say, the competition isn't with the other goalkeeper or the other centre midfielder. The competition is with yourself. That's what you've done. That's what, you know, my first note here is getting the most out of yourself. You strike me as somebody who has squeezed the most out of yourself.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think, you know, when you go back to a little bit early on in the career. Just as an example to that, I've tried to do that. You know, I've certainly that's what I've strived towards. You know, when you get your wrist scanned, you know, early on in the academy, you know, how big you're going to be. I was going to be 6'1", which in modern day goalkeeping terms, I can't remember. They get a wrist scan, I think, and it gives you a predicted height. And obviously, it's sort of 17, 18, you start to get fully grownish. You know, and I was 6'1", which isn't the biggest, you know, at that time as well, size was probably more of a thing than it actually is now. Whereas I knew that was going to be something that wasn't going to limit me, but it might limit other people's thinking. So you look at the counterbalance and think, right, well, if that's the case, how can I find a different way to gain height, be more powerful? You know, have a real good, real quick jump. And I literally worked on power for 2 or 3 years.
You've got some glutes on you as well, pal.
That's where they came from. That's some hereditary, and some, you know, it was 2 or 3 years of real strong power work every day. So, and I've continued that throughout my career, because I know to play at the top level without that height, you know, I need the power. So that's where it came from. So that was one example of trying to maximize, understanding yourself, and then trying to maximize what I've got to get there. And, you know, there's been plenty of places I've been where I've come top of the power charts. I've prided myself on it. And that's the reason behind it, actually.
So tell us about how you've dealt with loan moves then. So you had a period where, you know, Manchester United, did you get loaned out there? Was that the start of a loan period?
Yes, I think 7 or 8 loan periods during the time. I remember, Hart, when you were at City, did you go to Blackpool?
Yeah.
Where else did you go? You went somewhere, Shrewsbury.
Tranmere.
Tranmere, that's it. I think by the time you'd played 100 league games, I'd played 15 or 20 or something like that. And that was a problem for me. You know, that was a problem, not in terms of comparison to you. I'm using you as a comparison at the time. Having been, you know, what you said, the golden boy, which is probably too strong, but, you know, I'd been done well at England, come through United, and it just started to slow down a little bit.
So Alex liked it though, didn't he? I've joked about that before, but you had a path at the club. I remember we're going back now, but
yeah,
you were training with the big boys. Like, you've always had it. I remember when Gaz Nev was first team coach with England, like, I didn't realise you had not a great relationship, because he was a dick to you, but that was just how he rolled as a senior pro. But you were with the big boys at Man United, weren't you? Were you training with Edwin? Were you training with?
Yeah, training with Edwin. And previous to that, you know, a little bit of Barces.
Unquestionably the biggest club, biggest powerhouse at that time. Like, yeah, unquestionably.
Yeah, it was. But that's where this is where the practical experience held me back, as I see it. You know, to continue my progression on the path that it was on at 16, 17, 18, I needed to go and play games at a decent level, and I didn't. Is the reality. I went to Swindon, got my first loan move in League One, which was a great loan move. A little bit hit and miss, some good stuff, some bad. Brilliant to play 19 games there. Went to Royal Antwerp, didn't play a game.
Why not? Wasn't that their feeder club? United had a bit of a feeder club.
Feeder club. Went out there with five other lads. Those 5 played. You know, the goalkeeper there they liked. There was a little bit of political issues. I don't like it because it's not something I like to use as an excuse. That said, I wasn't great when I went over there, because it didn't go quite to plan from the moment I got there. Always had the shiny walls of Man United around me. Didn't deal with it particularly well. Toys out the cart a little bit.
And who's in charge of your career here? Have you got an agent? Have you got is it still Richard Curtis? Is it obviously your old man?
Rich Hart's coach. Tony Coton. Tony Coton was in charge. The goalkeeper. Right. He was first team goalkeeper. He don't think he actually wanted to send me to Antwerp, but did, and then ended up getting me back. But it was just half a season that hadn't gone well by the time I'd got away. And not only did it not gone particularly well in terms of my progression, I'd probably gone backwards in terms of diet, attitude, and had a real strong. At the end of I'd already got in the habit of ending every season doing an appraisal on the season really for myself, and knew at that point, stop relying on the easy way out of relying on people around you to do things for you. I needed to take some responsibility. So to be fair, I went back to the club, number 3 keeper for a couple of seasons. They won the Champions League when I was in the 24-man squad. Won the Premier League.
Who's playing?
Edwin was playing. Thomas Kuchat was number 2.
I've spoke to Fozzie. He played with Edwin. He couldn't speak highly enough about him. Can you tell me about your relationship with, or your thoughts on being with one of the greatest keepers ever to? Let's be honest, an inspiration to me more now because of his career really kicked on when he was 35, and that really does give you some it does give you that. Well, yeah, it's not over. Yeah. You can start again at our age if you like.
Yeah, incredible man. I speak to him every now and then still. He was incredible goalkeeper. He had so many things in his game which I tried to put into my game from working closely with him. The biggest of which was his effect on the team because of how calm he was and how composed he was, and not just with how he played, but his words, his understanding, talking to people off the pitch. He just never flustered, Edwin. Never. Yeah. Nothing was ever an issue. I remember, I think Portsmouth away when I was in the stand watching, travelled down. I think we'd been to a Champions League game in the week somewhere and flew straight to Portsmouth, if my memory serves me right. And I think a back pass went wrong with Rio, and I remember it rarely happened that, between those two, or even at United under him, and it went in. And I just remember watching him walk back, no problem, ball out the net, ball down, we go again. And that was him as a man. He was so calm, so composed, and that spread through the team. And on top of that, he made big saves at big moments. Be quiet for the games. I think Sporting Lisbon away again, or sat in the crowd. And I think one goal against us would have knocked us out, and he produced something out of the top corner, which was just a massive save at a massive moment. So yeah, for me, it was brilliant to be working so closely with him. I tried to add into my game that calmness, the talking to people, that spreading composure throughout the team. And similar to you, I think he is certainly one of my greatest ever. I think him and Schmeichel are my top 2 if I look at it.
And also in that team, so that means he must be training with the Ronaldos of this world. Even Gary Neville has a mentality like another player who's squeezed everything out of himself. Let's be honest. Yeah. What are you taking from these great crop of players? But you're on the outskirts of, but you're also a part of. What are you taking from these guys?
It was a brilliant experience, as in being in the dressing room with them day in, day out. Your Giggs, your Keane, your Scholes, Van Nistelrooy, Ronaldo, Ferdinand, Vidic. The list goes on. It was brilliant. It was brilliant seeing how they do it. I think what straight away comes to my mind is preparation for a game. Same every time. Whether it was a Champions League final or it was an FA Cup game for third round, never changed. There was always the same build up, preparation to it. Mentally, there was nothing ever different. There wasn't less or more, always the same. That and the competitiveness and tempo and intensity of training every single day. There was a will and desire to win every single day from every single player. And I knew as a young player coming in, if I wasn't right at the top of my game, I was probably letting someone down. And it's not a place you wanted to be on the Man United training pitch where you're letting a team down in a small-sided game. It's just not. So that also guides you to the fact that, that late night pitches at 10 till 12, better not that on the egg, because I need to be in bed for 10 to give it and make sure I'm giving myself the best possible chance every single day, because they didn't let up ever.
Did you carry that on then? Is that something that you carried on? I've got 2 questions. Did you carry that on? And then the next question is, you're in the stands, you're number 3. There'll be lots of number 3s watching this. There'll be lots of future number 3s, usually an academy player somewhere. What is it you can share? What's the insight?
Yeah, the real easy one for that, Jay. I think the big moment for me was Moscow 2008. Just won the Champions League. After the game, celebrating, biggest moment of everyone's career. just felt like an imposter. And I knew from that day I didn't want to be on the bench, didn't want to be in the stand, wanted to be on the pitch. And that was a marker, big marker for me. That great experience to understand it, but I wanted to put that experience to work. I didn't want to be on the edge of it. I wanted to be right in the middle of it, and that's what I've chased really throughout my career. Really playing, being on the pitch. I've always been respectful when I'm not playing. There's a massive burning desire to be out there and be on the pitch and affecting it that way, and I think it really came home to me that night in Moscow. Just despite winning the being part of the squad, the 24-man squad, even the 5 that missed out on the bench, 5 or 6, some big names in there. It just didn't feel right for me. It's not what I was after. So yeah, when I left at 24 and there was a contract on the table, I knew it was the right decision. I've been there for 13 years and enjoyed every minute of it and learned an awful lot. I knew I had to go and try and earn a career, really, earn where I wanted to be. I wanted to play for England, I wanted to play in the Premier League. I hadn't done either, wasn't close to doing either. To do it, I knew I had to go and forge my own path. So that decision for me, never in doubt. Even when I had a heated conversation with the manager, Sir Alex, and it never left me that it was the right decision. It just didn't, even though I was dropping down to the ship, no guarantees.
Did he want you to stay?
Felt like the right one. Sorry?
Did he want you to stay?
He did. There was a contract on the table, and I can understand why. I was walking out the door. I was just turned 24 when I left, 2 years after that Champions League final. I was walking out the door afraid to put an awful lot of time, effort into me. I was walking out the door for no money at all. I can understand that would be difficult for the club, but I knew it was right. I knew it was right, and I'll always respect. He got me back in 3 weeks later. He's always there for me. I've seen him a few times since. So he was brilliant in the end. But it was sort of a challenge at the time, but it never, the belief never left me that it was the right decision to go and throw caution to the wind, really.
Sorry, I got one question for you, and something that I've not struggled with, but like being in and around a dressing room of the only thing that matters is winning.
Yeah.
The only thing that matters is winning in that training session because it transfers into the game. That's the only thing that matters. How have you find being in teams where this is no disrespect to the teams, because I've always said in football's a job. So people get paid, people get a contract and they're allowed to do whatever the hell they want. Like they get paid, they don't ask to be paid. But how have you found being in teams and in around places where the only thing that matters isn't winning and being successful isn't the number one? Because I find that difficult, and I do find that difficult, and that's why I'm so excited to be where I'm at now. However, whatever position I have to play in that team, I'm in a team that wants to win. That is the desire. How have you found coming away from that feeling at Manchester United, or growing up for years? Like all that was ingrained in you was Champions Leagues. Yeah, we won the league, great, but have we won the double? Have we won the treble? And then you go to another club where people are probably more bothered what the other lad's on, wages wise, and I'm better than him. All that crap that just really is annoying as a winning focused person. How have you found that?
Yeah, challenging at times. Coming away from that, don't think it's ever been replicated. In my experience, not to that level. To be brutally honest, why? I think it's a mentality, and when players came into the group, if you didn't have that mentality, it stood out so much. So you either conformed, or you just weren't part of it. So yeah, coming away from that in different dressing rooms, I think it probably hasn't affected me personally, because my biggest driver is my own performance. Me and you have laughed and joked over the years about, I think I've got a reputation of being a relatively pleasant person, a nice guy. But we've had a laugh about being a facade and how selfish I am and self-absorbed, and part of that coming out is the fact that the drive about performing myself. I care most about me performing. I'm a big believer in individuals in each team doing the job, and then the cream on top is it coming together, maybe affecting a few other people at the top level, but 95% of it is getting yourself right first. So that's a big one for me. So that's my main driver. You know, I can't hide that, and I won't hide that. You know, that is my first thing. I've then, you know, if you're doing that, I then try and find a way of influencing others, and trying to bring people along to the way of thinking. Everyone's different. Not everyone's got that mentality, but how can we get the best out of them? Which is probably why I got handed the armband at Burnley, and you know, I try and have a big impact at Villa with the same sort of thing. It surprises me when people haven't got that drive and that competitive edge and that desire to give absolutely everything. I find it difficult to grasp, but at the end of the day, we're all different. You know, it takes all sorts. I try not to be too judgmental with it, and just deal with it and try and find a way of getting the best out of people, whoever they are, however they are. Yeah, I mean, United were like that because they were the best and they were winning everything at the time. No surprise for me.
But they weren't always like that, though, Heath. They weren't always like that. That's taken years to develop, and then it becomes cyclical because you go into that system, you will be out of that system if you don't have that mentality. What Joe's saying is that and you're saying is that you're not in a system where the culture is there. So it comes from you as an individual. And again, it's with respect to where you've been, you know, Joe, Torino, West Ham, Burnley. It doesn't have that culture. Cliche said it, didn't he? With Arsenal, you know, he's walked into that culture at Arsenal and said, I just have to be the best version of myself, and I'm part of this. Or you can walk in and go, oh my God, what, you know, look at who he is. I think, you know, I just wrote it down there. You know, people, I tell you, whether it's work life, personal life, football life, you're not getting these lessons. You've been in that company, that culture, where you're saying it's rubbed off on you. You go to another club, yeah, where you are now. It takes years to develop that culture. So when you get into it, it's like embrace it. Or you have leaders who you affect one, you affect two, and then you have to affect 11 to 20 people for that to become a culture. You're saying you're surprised. Nobody at City, Joe, nobody, you try and not be that way, but you get dragged along because the majority affects the minority. That's, I think, what we're saying is at other clubs, the majority don't have that mentality. Yeah? But you can't get away with it at a club like Manchester United or Manchester City or Arsenal.
Yeah. I think the biggest thing is the mentality can be there, but it's not there every single time, I think.
Every day. It's not there every day. Yeah?
The consistency and the repetition of doing it every single day. You know, it's not like a switch going on and off.
Because it's a big game or because it's this. It's actually just that's who we are. We just do it like that, whether it's Hull or whether it's Barcelona. Yeah.
Agreed.
Listen, I mean, you know, I'm getting chills because I just think the value that whether a young player, that's the key statement there, what you've just said, it's every day. That's the reason why Sir Alex, Ronaldo, all the guys you've played with, it's every day. Not, I've woke up on the right side of the bed this morning and I fancy it.
Yeah, you bang on. Absolutely bang on. Just to go back a couple of steps, it's just something that's coming to my mind
Is
you asked about
this for you, Tom, by the way? I don't know.
Yeah, I'm enjoying it. I'm really enjoying it, actually. It just, it brings back the, the different lessons you learn over time. To go back through it, you sort of, I've still got that, burning, I've still got it. I think I've got it stronger than ever, that burning desire to play, to achieve, to perform. And I love it. Love that feeling. I think when you're injured, it's one of the things you miss. It's the thing you miss. It's the thing I miss. There's nothing that recreates that feeling, that edge that it takes you to. Those. I've framed it in the psychologist that I work with, Carl Morris. He framed it as energy. That little mix of anxiety, nervousness, excitement, uncertainty. There's nothing in my life that I've ever come across that recreates that feeling. And yeah, it's powerful. So yeah, I am really enjoying it. Just to go back to the loan moves, I'm just thinking about the progression in the graph from sort of late teens, 16, 17, 18, where it was going really well, and the lack of practical experience that I talked about. What I did realise in the loan spells from 19 to 23, 24, about halfway through, I think one of my loan spells at Cardiff City when I was 22, 23, was that I felt my potential was here, and what I was actually producing was probably here. And it wasn't a technical issue, it wasn't a physical issue. It was at that moment that I think I realised there was something that I wasn't getting quite right on a practical level on a match day, because I was capable of it. I know I was capable of it from where I've been and where I can do it day in, day out of the training ground at Man United. There was physically I was in good shape. Technically, I was goalkeeping wise, I was putting myself up there, but the output wasn't where the capabilities were, and that's arguably a reason why I was a late developer as such, because I had to find the way to balance my output with where my capability was. And for me, that was it was down the psychological route, which started with understanding myself, understanding how I work, sticking to that, not shying away from it, and finding some tools to deal with it. And I think that's probably now the strength in my game, that psychological side. Well, it's not probably, it's definitely the best. My forte in my game is that side of it, that ability to play consistently, perform consistently. So I just wanted to go back to it, because that was that thinking about the graph of my career, where I started, where we're at now. That middle portion was a real important part of finding myself and the need to find what got me to that optimal performance level.
Right. Interesting. Hey, what are you thinking, Joe?
I'm just thinking this is why I wanted you to come and speak. One, because it's so useful, and two, because you've not really had the kind of career where people know what you're about, and I think what you're about is a lot more than stats and people knowing you as a good goalkeeper. So I wanted that light shined, because it's something that I've enjoyed working with and something that I've taken a lot from. When I wanted to speak to you originally, I thought it'd be really interesting to talk about what happened after Watford and the Bristol City stuff, which I literally want to talk about that for 5 minutes, because it's fun and I think it's interesting to tell you about. But I think everything that you're saying and talking to us about is very inspirational, and is why we're doing the podcast. Like, it's why we're doing these conversations. We often talk about it, don't we, Jay? And when we try and we've done some things called Gloved Live, where we want people to tune in, and because we've talked to some really awesome people like Ben Fozzie, Big Phrase, Righty, Karen Bardsley, Micah, just Casper, like great stories. And I just can't get over how valuable hearing stuff like this is, and how much I'd love to have heard it when I was a young player or person. And even in the position I'm in now, like, if I wasn't doing it, I'd love to be listening to it, because I take things from it. So that's great.
Have I listened to them, huh?
No. I haven't listened to it. That's the mad thing. Like, I know, obviously I do them, but there's loads to come from it, Jay. And like, I think we're growing as what we're doing, and we're really getting to you know, I think if someone else was given the opportunity to speak to you, like how I know you'd speak to me, like there's going to be no barriers because there's no stitch ups. Like literally, I'm in it for the interest of you hear you talk. But it's really interesting to me what we home in on now, Jay. Like I always start thinking we're going to talk about something, and we end up just kind of there, but nowhere near where I thought we were going to go, and just getting out. And I just think it's great to talk and really discuss it. And I hope it helps you as well, Heats, as I know someone who thinks a lot. Like it's nice to go back and kind of revisit those situations.
It's interesting, you know. Already, I've got a question that's cropped up in my mind, if I'm honest. And you know, because you've sort of asked a few interesting questions, James, you know, it got me thinking a little bit about. I can sort of see why there's a bit of resilience there that maybe I've needed in my career at different points. What I have needed, I can see where. I think I can see where the desire to and the determination to achieve. But one thing that I've always had, if I'm totally honest, and I don't quite know why, is the inner belief. It's never wavered that. And even going to the, you know, the story that we're probably going to go on with Hart in a second, where you might think, you know, a loan spell in League Two with Rochdale, which was brilliant. I might add Keith Hill and Dave Fritcroft. We won the league that year, or certainly got promoted. You know, 12 games down in League Two, but I never really lost sight of what the goal was, and that was to play in the Premier League, be a number one in the Premier League, to play for England. Never lost sight of that. Never really wavered, to be honest. So I don't really, although I know it's always been there, I'm not quite sure why it's been there. So I've asked my own question, but if someone asked me, how do you get that? You've got an answer. I don't know. What do you think?
It's from 11 years old, seeing Man United as an opportunity and not something scary. I think the greatest thing to take from this, like, that's really like that I loved finding out, and I loved you probably, hopefully realizing, well, you knew it before anyway. But I love the fact that Man United winning the Champions League, you being involved in it. I love the fact that that was the moment you knew that you didn't want a part of it anymore. I love that. I love that was the light bulb moment when so many others, like every year someone wins the Champions League. I think when you win it, you don't like. I've never won it. I've got, you know, we got semi-final or whatever. Like, I'd love to win it, like, but anyway, whatever. It's not me. To have that is special, and but that's from being 11 years old. That's from being 10 years old. Like it comes from somewhere, and it comes from a belief and desire of somewhere, for that to have that kind of perspective. Is that the right word, Jay? To take yourself away from partying and being involved with Van der Sar, Ronaldo, like everyone else's dream, but like that wasn't your dream straight away. You saw that's not my dream, to be jumping around with these guys. Like, I'm happy for them, but I want to be on the pitch when the ball goes in. I don't want to be the guy celebrating whether I played or not. And I think that's a real special moment to take from this. And I don't know, it's really important for me to hear that.
I think if I was to draw it on my board as a line with 11 years old here, and then go another 5 years, another 5 years, and every 5 years of your career, that have been things that happen on the top side that have been really positive, things that's happened on the bottom side that have been negative, and you'd be able to put markers of the people that you've come across on that journey as well. Maybe you should do that, yeah. And you'd be able to see what you've talked about, those events and those challenges and those people, and you go, wow, look at that event and how it impacted me. And for a lot, you mentioned, I think Joe had probably had 100 league games and you had 15. But there would have been a point where, you know, you're saying, I want to play. But if you'd have not had that experience at United and been around those people at that time, even though you didn't have as many games, those 15 games, that experience was worth much more than the actual 100 league games. Because there'd have been another goalkeeper who would have had 100 league games, but wouldn't have had the Manchester United experience that actually gave you the foundation. Can guarantee that. And that's the question you've got to ask yourself is, what was that United experience, even though I didn't have the league games, how did that equate? And I think a lot of players miss that. So there is a time when you've got to get out and play, obviously, we know that. But at that time, what I like to get a player to do is to say, actually, what can I take from this now? Would I swap it? You know, I work with a player who he's had that situation. He's watching everybody else play lots of league games. And I said, that experience that you've had, the managers, I'll tell you now, your experience of working with Sir Alex Ferguson, Roy Keane, Ronaldo, all those guys was worth 100 games.
Yeah, that's fair. Can't argue with that, Joe.
Just write it out and just have a look at it.
Yeah, you've just made me think of when I went to start that, finding the psychological sort of understanding myself was first before I went down the tools of psychological, and did a bit of work with an NLP practitioner, and I wrote out a sort of, I've always been into goals, long term, medium term, and short term. I've always done it, but it was a bit more detailed this. And I remember the timeline that we drew out, where I am now, where do I want to be, over what time period. And I think I'll go back to that timeline and fill it in and fill out the events. It'll be interesting. It'll be interesting.
I'll do
that.
It's when it's in your head, it's kind of mixed up with, what time's training, when am I picking the kids up? It's mixed up with that. But when you put it on paper and you look at it, you just do see it differently. And that's why it's always good to have something to look back on. We often talk about that, is getting, writing things down. And, even when you've had the careers, or you to the levels that you two have had, I think it's even more important at this stage of your career. I think it's so much more important because, this is where your insights are. This is where, you're taking the value from the 10, 15 years that got you to this point. I think very often you get to this stage of a career or a life and it's just like, well, yeah, I'm supposed to be here. But, so write it down. Young people, write it down. Look back in 15 years' time. And yeah, so, no, it's good. It's, Joe, I think the one area that we didn't really, what about England? What's the, very quickly, what's your experiences of being with England, tournaments, goalkeepers, going to international duty? Did you look forward to it? Did you not look forward to it?
Always look forward to it. It was, as I say, it's always been a big ambition of mine. It still is. Still got real strong England ambitions. When I first got in the squad in 2015, you've been there for a while, Hart. You've been nailed on and performed very, very well at the time. I think I just got relegated to the Championship. I think maybe one of my first on my first club. So I was going to be in the Championship for the following season. Thought it was going to be difficult to stay involved, but thankfully stayed involved and went to the Euros with you, Joe, playing in 2016. As number 3, really. I think behind Big Fraser, was it? You were playing, and Fraser was number 2. But got my first cap just before the tournament. And I'll never forget, thanks to what's coming here, didn't you? So with about 20 minutes to go, England were playing Australia in a warm up for the Euros 2016. Having not played, I was going to the tournament. They were going to give me a cap, which made sense, just to make sure everyone's got a cap going to a major tournament, I think. Sent me out to warm up with 20 minutes to go. We were winning 2-0. Unfortunately, after about 40 seconds of warming up, Australia had scored to make it 2-1. So I continued the warm up. Time was ticking away. I'm sort of groin stretching, sort of trying to catch someone's attention on the bench. And I think on about 86, 87 minutes, I think you nudged the manager, didn't you, Harty, and just say, look, you haven't forgotten to put him on, have you? And 60 seconds later, I was on the pitch. Yeah, and again, another big moment for me. We had a good laugh about that, but I was massively appreciative. I think they played 2 or 3 minutes of injury time, so it was about 5 minutes in total, 2 touches. But a massive moment for me, pulling on that shirt. I'll never forget sort of high-fiving Fraser coming off, running over to the end where I think it was a goal kick. But anyway, I'm running over, clapping the fans, and I literally, as I put my hands up, I've still got a video of it now. Like I literally just started laughing. There was such elation to be on the pitch, pulling on the England shirt, and the clapping above my head with my arms in front of my face was half hiding the fact that I couldn't contain. As you've already told me about, poker's not my game. I don't hide much. Just a pure elation coming out. So it's been brilliant, the England thing. I love being involved with it. I would like to play more. I would like to be in that number 1 shirt. I'm not going to shy away from that. That 2017 summer, I saw as an opportunity to make a play for that number 1 shirt. Unfortunately, it ended with injury and hasn't happened since. But I've certainly not given up on that dream at all. There's obviously processes to go through. Getting back fit, performing for your club, and then taking opportunities when they come. But it's certainly at the forefront of my mind. So yeah, it was great to work with everyone. It was great to work at that level. But again, the focus never really drifted away, other than what I was doing and my journey really, and what I was trying to achieve.
Right. It's always an interesting one for goalkeepers. And then I think finally, Joe, from me, it's really, what do you say to the 16-year-old Tom Heaton?
Yeah, that's the big question for me. I've been dying to ask that. What would you say to 16, 17 now, knowing what you know? And I don't mean as in what would you do better. You're not necessarily. I don't want you to talk to necessarily you. I want you to talk to an actual 16 or 17-year-old trying to be you. Now, what would you say? What do you say is? Yeah, I'm not even going to try and give you an explanation. Just what would you say? You've got some group of people there potentially to do something in the game. What do you say to them?
I think I would say, from my experience, what I would say to them revolves around everyone taking their own path, their own journey. There's no set blueprint for people getting to where they want to get to or where they can get to. I think, my journey's different. I played in every league, and I'm proud of that journey. If I'm honest, I feel like I've taken something from every moment in that journey. So yeah, to try and sort of clear up what I'm saying, I'm rambling a little bit, but I try and clear up what I'm saying. I would say everyone's got their own path. I think you can forge your own path. How far you go and where you go will be down to what you do and how you do it. I would take responsibility for yourself, make the most of every situation, and forge your own path. The responsibility is on your shoulders to maximize everything you've got. Don't get too high or low with short-term thinking. You've got to think of the long term and how you're going to keep progressing all the way through. That's what I'd say.
I thought you'd say that. It's still important to hear, and you wouldn't believe from all the people that we to have similar a message is, isn't it, Jay? It's pretty much the message. Yeah, because everyone, we probably, we need to speak to someone young. I think I don't mean that disrespectfully. I mean we need to speak to that 16, 17-year-old, because we all know now that the most important thing is is to find out what the best version of you is and be it. Quite simply, find out what gets the best out of yourself as a person, as a player, and just be it consistently. Don't play at it, be it. And that's not going to promise you the top. It's not going to promise you to fail. It's going to get you the best out of you. And I think that's what the message, well, my clear message, and what it sounds like you Heats is trying to say is the best you can do. Like the rest of it's in the hands of however football falls or however life falls. But give yourself the best opportunity.
It's not always in it. Sometimes the journey, the door. People talk about, well, it's, it is up to you. No, what's up to you is how you show up every day. You can learn those lessons from the environment you're in, from the culture that you're in. But if you don't show up every day, this is why when people say it's about the team and the team culture, yes, that's important. All coaches, all people talk about teams and we. But until you as an individual go to another level, you cannot contribute to the group. And that's the bit that people miss. And the recurring theme from all of you guys is take care of the bits that you control, and then you can contribute to that environment. Now, if that environment's not the best environment, then you're not being dragged down, you're not being dragged up, you're just taking care of you. You might be on the bench, you might be watching, you might be in the stands. If that environment, if you're taking care of you every day and the environment is great, it just magnifies it. It enhances. And part of that journey might be that if you're not playing or somebody's in front of you, you don't even control that. I said to somebody the other day, if you're a winger and you're at Manchester United and they're talking about signing Jadon Sancho, what do you control about that?
Yeah.
So, recurring theme. So you're right. It's not. We need to get a young person. I think it's just get that perspective from a young person, and it just shifts it. That's why we need to get a goalkeeping coach on here as well.
Yeah, true.
I've got Watto. Yeah, I'll never forget his quote on the first England trip. You're not that close to getting a cap yet. Cheers, Watto. Just had a good week there. Really enjoyed it. Brilliant. Thanks. Brilliant, wasn't it? I know. Hey, it was good though. I enjoyed working with Watto. Very good.
Yeah,
I just on the international one. It just made me think of that. I don't know if you wanted to talk about it, but do you remember after the Iceland game I was sat behind you, on the Iceland game on the bus after. That was a big moment for me. Big moment for me. Just a big learning point for me, because obviously, you were obviously upset. It was a difficult moment, but it also rang true to me. I tried to give you a little bit of comfort, a little bit of support, but it was also rang true to me about goalkeeping, about life. It's it wasn't the end of the world. It was not ideal for what we were after, but it's part and parcel of it. About the ability to deal with it, accept it, you move on, you crack on forwards. It was just, even with all that pressure for the national team, the country at that level, which it doesn't get in that. Sometimes it goes well, sometimes it doesn't go so well. Sometimes it's indifferent. You can only do all you can do and move forward. It was just that sort of lesson was at the forefront of my mind when I was sat behind you that day on the bus away from the game. And I felt for you. I felt for you going through it. But I knew you'd be strong.
Tell me what you saw there, because it's interesting for me. Because I obviously only remember living. I only remember literally thinking, "Yep, I should have done better. Should have done a lot better." But nothing else was ever in my head other than, I should have done better. But I tried.
No, I know, and I knew that's where you were at. I remember saying, having a conversation with you. I remember you saying to me, it's less about me, but more about my family and what they're going through with it all surrounding it. And I could understand that. I could relate to that. It was an interesting moment. You know, it wasn't the fact that you couldn't deal with it, because I knew you could, but you didn't want them to have to deal with anything, you know. And that, I remember you saying it, and I thought at the time, yeah, I can see where you're coming from there. You know, because we're used to it, aren't we? You know what I mean? Especially when you're playing goal, you've always gone through it. You accept that, especially the goalkeeper. I keep saying it, but especially the keeper. You know, you accept that things might not go to plan. You know, the ball could go through your hands. You get beat 1-0 last minute. You know, you're taking the responsibility, but you accept it as a keeper. But it was interesting where your mind was at with your family and everyone in your sort of support network. You were more worried about them than yourself.
I think that's a goalkeeper, mate. Like, your mentality is to protect.
Yeah.
I couldn't protect the goal, but that was put to bed. The final whistle was blown, and now it was time to protect what mattered. And like, it's weird you say that. Like, not asked about me, I can deal with it. Like, and sometimes even if it's abuse or praise or whatever it is, it's coming at you, it's fine because it's on you. But it's when it leaks, and you know, that's what comes with being England's goalkeeper. You have to accept that. And you know, in years to come, when I'm eventually comfortable with talking about and trying to help goalkeepers, England, even to the elite level of England goalkeepers, I think I'd be able to help. You know, you've got to really you've got to understand that. You need to understand the position. And I think I understood the position. I understood the good side of it. And I also understood, I had a shit game and we were at the tournament. It's probably going to be blown on me. What can I do about it? You can't hide. But it's just sad that with the debris that comes with it, with the people that, you know, want, ultimately all they care about is you as a friend, as a husband, or as a family member. Like, they just don't want to see you sad. So yeah, it's a mad position.
No, it is very much so.
It's fun.
Yeah, it is. And then, did you want to do the Bristol City story or not?
Yeah, definitely, 100%.
You want to chuck that in?
Come on. So right.
Sorry, Joe. Keep adding stories on here, mate. Sorry, you're gonna be.
Let me. So this is the first ever gloved extra during an episode. This is just too good not to be documented. Pearls of wisdom. We've got deep. We've got really into it. But Heats, tell me about your experience here, please. Set it right up, mate, because I love it.
Yeah, I'd left Man United. I'd signed at Cardiff City. First season, I'd signed a 2-year contract. The first season, I'd played half the games, a little bit plagued with injuries. Second season, they'd signed David Marshall, who played, I think, 44 out of the 46 league games. Got that right? Yeah, 44 out of 46. I only played 2 when he was injured. Thankfully, that season we'd had a League Cup run that ended at Wembley, Cardiff versus Liverpool. You know, one of the highlights of my career. I had a decent day there. Saved Stephen Gerrard's penalty, but we ended up getting beat on penalties. Highlights in terms of my performance, I mean. And on the back of that season, I decided to leave in search of first team football again. I'd signed, not that ironically, because it's obviously all linked, but for Sean Dyche at Watford, 3-year contract. Really looking forward to it. Put a down on a rented house. Ready to go, ready to rock and roll for pre-season. Went away to Paris, celebrated with a few friends and more. And the club got taken over and it all went quiet and it all went a bit strange. And the manager, Sean Dyche, got sacked. He called me to apologise.
Had you physically signed the papers? I'd
signed the papers. However, there was a discrepancy on the papers, which at the time we didn't know. You know, there was no. They'd sacked all the new owners had sacked the directors, so there was no director to sign the papers. At the time, I thought, oh, fair enough. You know, like they hadn't signed there was no one there to sign, but the club secretary had signed. I'd signed, my agent had signed, but there was one signature missing, which is where the loophole came. You know, so ended up getting hold of him sort of, you know, maybe 2 weeks after I'd signed. Yeah, we're not going to sign you. Sorry, what was that? Just signed a 3-year deal at Watford. You know, I couldn't leave it. Put a deposit down on the house, and it left me stranded. You know, it left me stranded in terms of trying to find a club. By that time, people were back in training. A lot of the offers had been taken. A lot of the possibilities. I was on a free contract. So Bristol City were desperate for a goalkeeper, but they weren't mad keen. You know, they hadn't, the manager Derek McInnes hadn't seen me play very much. They had Dean Gherkin there, top lad, very good goalkeeper. So they asked me to go away with them. At that point, you know, I'm 26 years old. You know, just played at Wembley in the League Cup final, and you know, I was asked to go away to Spain for a week to do a week's trial. I thought, challenging moment this, but you put my shoulders back myself. Said, yeah, okay, I'll go away. Train with them, worked with Nigel Spink, who was brilliant, the goalkeeper coach, Aston Villa legend as well. I still speak to Spinksy now. Had a good week, and we had a game at the end of the week against a local team. Pub team might be a bit strong, but you know, of that sort of amateur nature, to be brutally honest. Let's call them the Marbella 11. So we played them in the first half. I played 45 minutes for Bristol City, hardly touched the ball, tried to, you know, do my talking and what have you. And they came to me at half time and said, look, we haven't seen much of you. Can we have a look at you playing for Marbella 11 so we can see you in action? So there was a load of Spanish lads, not got a word of the lingo, trying to tell them to get off the pitch. Yeah, so I played basically a trial match for Marbella 11 against Bristol City.
What did you say when you got asked?
I mean, at the time, again, I just thought, yeah, no problem. You know, and like, as you get older, you get a little bit of ego, you get a little bit of, but at the end of the day, I was backing what I was doing. I thought, yeah, stick me in goal if you want, fire a few shots at me, no problem. I ended up making a few saves, to be fair.
Did you change kits?
No, I stayed in the Bristol City kit I was in. But I ended up signing, signed there and ended up playing, I think I played 43 of the 46 league games, and, you know, we finished bottom of the league. A season where we thought, you know, we had expectation to make the playoffs. We finished rock bottom of the league, conceded 80 goals. I won a couple of the Player of the Year awards, and I really, really enjoyed it.
Who for? Marbella 11 or Bristol?
No, that was for Bristol City. But it was just a, you know, as I look back now, it's like a marker of, you know, on trial playing for sort of an opposition team for 45 minutes. It's ridiculous almost. You know, as I look at it now, you know, I played for England three years later, but you know, at the time, it was just another step on the journey of where I was trying to get to. I knew I needed a club. I knew I needed a platform to go and perform on. So I was willing to do all it takes. And it's only really after, and sort of in hindsight, I look back and, you know, you and I have a laugh about that story all the time. You can't wait to tell people that story.
I love it. No, I love it because I think it's credit to you. I'm not mocking it. I think it's just, I just love it.
Yeah. No, I understand. Don't get me wrong. It just, I don't know. It didn't seem to, it didn't send shockwaves through me at the time.
You looking back, you back yourself. That was the key thing. You said you back yourself. So, you know, there's many who would have said, "What if this goes wrong? What if I let 5 goals in?" But you know, you've just gone and done it, and you've done you've done that. You've done that throughout your career.
Exactly.
Marbella 11's cracker, isn't it?
I love it, mate. I absolutely love it. I'd love to get someone on that you played with that time and find out what they're up to.
Yeah. No, me, it'd be like a Spaniel or something. I'd have just made Marbella. Do some proper team, you know what I mean?
Absolutely disrespected Malaga.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the end of another Gloved episode. Amazing. Exactly what I thought it was going to be and more. Heats, thank you so much. I think you've brought everything that we want from a podcast in terms of delivering and asking and answering questions that we think are going to be so vital for people and you guys that are supporting us out there. So we're going to follow up this episode with a specific Gloved Live on the Glove podcast page, and myself and Jamie will be ready to talk everything Tom Heaton, everything that you've taken from the podcast. Listen to it again, go deep, try and put yourselves in the positions, try and reference it to points in your life, see if it helps you, see if it doesn't. Yeah, I think we can learn a lot from what we've had. So I just want to say thank you to Tom for your time and your honesty is really appreciated, and hopefully, well, I know it's going to help loads of people out there. So thank you very much, Tom.
Cheers, Joe. Thanks, Jem. Really enjoyed it. Actually, it was good for me to go back through it, see some lessons, and then yeah, it's good to sort of bring them to the forefront of your mind, and I really enjoyed it. So thanks for having me on.
It's Tom, it's been great. I think it's a long one. It's been it's been a long one, but a lot of valuable lessons. I think this is the goalkeepers reunion. So that's I think that's, you know, just to have you both at the same period in the same club in the same England team. I think that's quite a unique experience for the podcast. So you know, great stories. Loved all of them, and lots of insight as well. You know, I don't care what position you play, you know, whether it's in life or in football. I think you can take a lot from your story. So appreciate you sharing it.